I'm sitting in this vinyl chair for the 23rd night in a row, watching my son's chest rise and fall with the rhythm of machines. David, 28 years old. 3 weeks ago, a drunk driver ran a red light and turned my world into this endless nightmare of beeping monitors and antiseptic smells. The doctors say his brain is healing, but they can't tell me when he'll wake up. If he'll wake up. But that's not what's keeping me awake tonight. It's her. Vanessa arrived today at noon, stayed exactly 47 minutes, and spent most of that time on her phone in the hallway. I counted. Yesterday it was 32 minutes. The day before, barely 20. I watch her manicured nails scroll through her screen while my son fights for his life 10 feet away. And something cold settles in my stomach. A mother knows. I've known since the day David brought her home 2 years ago, when she looked at my modest living room like it carried a disease. I've known through every fake smile at family dinners, every excuse to leave early, every time she steered my son away from me with her perfectly practiced laugh. But today, I saw something that confirmed every instinct I've tried to ignore. Vanessa in the hospital cafeteria, leaning across a table toward a man in a $1,500 suit. Not a friend, not family, a lawyer. I could tell by the leather briefcase, the stack of papers between them, the way they both kept their voices low. She slid documents across the table. He slid them back, marked with yellow tabs. She smiled. My son is dying upstairs, and his wife is smiling in the cafeteria with a lawyer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that smile, kept feeling the cold certainty spreading through my chest. Then the envelope arrived. Formal, legal, thick paper that means expensive attorneys. Petition for emergency guardianship. Vanessa wants legal control over David's medical decisions and his money. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped it. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Something sharp and ready. Because what my daughter-in-law doesn't know is this. I've been preparing for this moment for 6 months, and I'm already 3 steps ahead. Before continuing, if this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, because every day I'm bringing you stories of women who turn their deepest pain into a new good way of living their lives. I need to go back to when David was 3 years old and his father walked out with nothing but a duffel bag and a forwarded address to states away. I was 28 then. The same age David is now, lying in that hospital bed. I remember standing in our tiny apartment kitchen, holding my baby boy while he cried for his daddy, and making a promise. I would be enough. I would give him everything. I would make sure he never felt that abandonment again. So I worked. God, how I worked. I took a job as a medical secretary at a clinic downtown. Morning shifts turned into double shifts. I learned medical coding at night after David went to sleep. Certifications stacked up like armor against poverty. I packed his lunches in brown paper bags decorated with marker drawings. Because I couldn't afford the character lunchboxes other kids had. I sewed patches on his jeans instead of buying new ones. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror to save $30. But David never went without what mattered. Piano lessons when he showed interest in music. A good computer when he discovered coding in middle school. Every single sports fee and field trip and school supply. Even when it meant I ate rice and beans for dinner while he had chicken and vegetables. I watched him grow into someone extraordinary, kind, brilliant, hardworking like his mother, but with a gentleness I had to teach myself after years of survival mode. When he got into college, I cried in my car for an hour. Full scholarship for academics, but he still needed money for housing, books, living expenses. I took a second weekend job cleaning offices. David never knew. He thought his campus housing was covered by a grant. It wasn't. It was covered by his mother scrubbing toilets at 6 a.m. on Saturdays. He graduated with honors. No debt. That was my gift to him. By 25, he'd started his own tech consulting business with his best friend James. Something about data security systems that I never fully understood but was so proud of. I told everyone at the clinic, my boy, the entrepreneur, my boy, who would never struggle like I did. The business grew. Within 2 years, David was making more money than I'd ever seen. He bought himself a nice condo downtown. He drove a decent car. He took me to dinner at restaurants with cloth napkins and wine lists. That's when Vanessa appeared. He met her at some networking event. She worked in marketing for a tech startup, or so she said. Blonde hair that never moved in the wind. Designer everything. The kind of woman who looked like she'd never packed a brown paper lunch in her life. David was smitten. I tried to be happy for him. I really did. But the first time he brought her to my house, I saw something in her eyes when she looked around my small living room, my second-hand couch, my outdated kitchen, my garden that I tended because growing my own vegetables still saved money, even though I didn't need to anymore. Disgust, just a flash, quickly covered with a practiced smile. But I saw it. She barely touched the dinner I'd spent all afternoon making. Said she was watching her carbs. Checked her phone under the table. Asked David if we could leave early because she had a headache. In the car, through my front window, I watched her laugh at something on her screen. No headache. Just an excuse. A mother knows. Over the next year, David drifted. Sunday dinners became monthly dinners became we're so busy, Mom. Maybe next month. He always apologized. Always sounded genuine. But I could hear her voice in the background, light and insistent, pulling him somewhere else. They got engaged after 8 months. David asked my blessing in my kitchen, so excited he was almost shaking. I looked at my son, my beautiful boy who I'd sacrificed everything for, and I couldn't say no. I couldn't be the mother who stood in the way of his happiness. So I said yes. I hugged him. I pretended my instincts were just old-fashioned worry. The wedding was small. I paid for most of it from my savings. Vanessa complained it wasn't at a country club. Complained about the flowers. Complained about the photographer. On what should have been one of the happiest days of my life, watching my son get married, I stood in the back of that rented hall and felt dread settle into my bones. At the reception, Vanessa's friends whispered and giggled. I caught fragments. Can you believe this venue? I thought he had money. Maybe it's just her side that's broke. I pretended not to hear. David was happy. That's what mattered. That's what I told myself. But the signs continued. Family gatherings where Vanessa would steer David away whenever he sat next to me. Holidays where they suddenly had other plans. Phone calls that got shorter and shorter. And whenever I did see David, he looked tired. Stressed in a way that wasn't just business pressure. 6 months ago, something changed. David showed up at my house on a Tuesday afternoon, unannounced. Vanessa didn't know he was there. He looked exhausted, defeated. We sat at my kitchen table, and he told me everything. Vanessa wanted him to liquidate the business, sell his half to James and invest it all in her brother's cryptocurrency venture. Something about blockchain and guaranteed returns. David had researched it. It was sketchy at best, fraudulent at worst. He'd said no. She'd been furious. They'd been fighting for weeks. She kept saying he didn't trust her, didn't believe in her family, was holding them back from real wealth. My son looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, Mom, I think I made a mistake. My heart broke and burned at the same time. I held his hand across that table and said something I'd been thinking for months. Protect yourself. Legally. He looked confused. So I explained. Set up trusts. Document your assets. Make sure everything requires dual authorization. Put safeguards in place. And make sure your medical power of attorney and will are ironclad. With someone you trust completely. David laughed, but it was hollow. You think it's that bad? I think, I said carefully, that it's better to have protection you don't need than to need protection you don't have. He agreed, maybe to humor me, maybe because some part of him knew I was right. We met with my lawyer, Margaret Chen, the following week. Margaret was the woman who'd helped me plan my own small estate years ago, and I trusted her completely. She drew up everything. A trust protecting David's business assets and personal savings. Dual signature requirements. A medical power of attorney naming me, not his wife, as primary decision maker. A will that was clear and witnessed. David signed everything. Joked that I was paranoid. Said Vanessa would probably laugh if she knew. We agreed not to tell her. That was 6 months ago. Now, sitting in this hospital with that guardianship petition in my hands, I understand something terrible. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. And somewhere in my grief and fear and exhaustion, there's also this gratitude that I listened to my instincts. Gratitude that I protected my son when he couldn't protect himself. Because the woman he married is about to learn that you don't underestimate a mother who's spent 28 years fighting for her child. I pick up my phone and call Margaret Chen. It's time to show Vanessa exactly who she's dealing with. Margaret Chen's office is on the 14th floor of a downtown Seattle high-rise, with windows that overlook Elliott Bay. I've been here twice before. Once for my own will. Once with David, 6 months ago, when we set up his protections. Now I'm here for war. Margaret is 58, sharp as broken glass, with gray hair cut in a precise bob and glasses that she peers over like a judge examining evidence. She's never been the warm, fuzzy type. That's exactly why I trust her. I slide the guardianship petition across her mahogany desk. She reads it in silence. Her expression doesn't change, but I see her jaw tighten. Emergency guardianship, she finally says. Filed by Vanessa Hayes. Petitioning for full medical and financial decision-making authority over David Hayes, her incapacitated spouse. Can she do this? My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Margaret looks up. She can try. And if you hadn't come to me 6 months ago, she might have succeeded. Something loosens in my chest. The power of attorney you and David executed is legally binding and notarized. You are named as his primary medical decision-maker. She can petition all she wants, but that document supersedes her claim as spouse, especially since it was created when David was of sound mind and clearly stated his wishes. What about his money? Margaret flips through a file. The trust is airtight. All major financial transactions require dual authorization from both trustees, you and David. She has no access. Even as his spouse, even with a guardianship order, she cannot touch those assets without your signature. I close my eyes. 6 months ago, David thought I was being paranoid. Now, that paranoia might be the only thing saving him. There's more, Margaret says. This petition was filed by Richard Pembroke's firm. The name means nothing to me. Pembroke specializes in what we call creative estate management. He's been disciplined twice by the Bar Association for ethical violations. He takes cases other lawyers won't touch. If Vanessa hired him, she's not looking for justice. She's looking for loopholes. My hands curl into fists on my lap. What do? We fight back. We file a counterpetition establishing your authority under the existing POA. We demonstrate that Vanessa's claim is not in David's best interests. And we start gathering evidence of her motives. Evidence, I repeat. Margaret leans forward. Has she done or said anything that suggests she's after his money rather than his welfare? I think about the decreasing hospital visits, the lawyer in the cafeteria, the smile. She barely sees him anymore. When she does visit, she doesn't talk to him, doesn't touch him. She just checks her phone and leaves. That's behavioral evidence. We need more. Documentation. Witnesses. Paper trails. I nod slowly. His business partner, James, he might know things. Talk to him. And anyone else who's observed her behavior. Hospital staff. Friends. Build me a picture. I stand to leave, but Margaret stops me. One more thing. Be careful. If Vanessa is desperate enough to hire Pembroke, she might do something desperate. Watch your back. The warning follows me all the way to David's business office. James meets me in the small conference room. He's 29, sandy-haired, with tired eyes that haven't slept well since the accident. He and David started this business together in a shared apartment, coding until dawn, living on ramen and ambition. How is he? James asks. The same, stable. But I need to talk to you about Vanessa. Something shifts in his expression. Guard going up. James, she's trying to take control of his assets. I need to know if there's anything you've seen or heard that I should know about. He's quiet for a long moment. Then he exhales. She's been pressuring him for months. About the business. Pressuring him how? She wanted him to sell, liquidate his half, and invested in some cryptocurrency scheme her brother's running. David looked into it. It's basically a pyramid scheme. He refused. My stomach turns. They fought about it constantly. She said he was holding her back, that he was too cautious, that real entrepreneurs take risks. James rubs his face. David told me a month before the accident that he was thinking about divorce. The room spins slightly. He never told me that. He didn't want to worry you. He was trying to figure out how to do it cleanly. He asked me about business valuations, asset protection, legal separation of finances. James looks at me directly. He was going to leave her. Did she know? I think she suspected. She showed up here one day, unannounced, demanding to see our financial records. Said as David's wife she had a right. I told her she didn't. She was furious. When was this? 2 weeks before the accident. My blood goes cold. James hesitates, then continues. There's something else. About a week before the crash, I saw her at the Oceanair, that expensive seafood place downtown. She was having dinner with some guy, not David. They were close, holding hands across the table, laughing. The betrayal cuts even though I already knew she was poison. Do you know who he was? No. But I took a photo. He pulls out his phone, scrolls, shows me. Vanessa in a red dress, leaning toward a man in a dark suit. His hand covering hers. Her smile genuine in a way I've never seen it with David. Can you send that to me? He does, immediately. James, would you be willing to testify about all this? In court, if necessary. To protect David? Absolutely. Before continuing, make sure to like this video and subscribe. With your support, we can keep bringing more stories from powerful women that touch the heart of all of us. I leave the office with evidence mounting, but I need more. I need something concrete that shows Vanessa's intentions. That's when I remember. I have a key to their condo. David gave it to me 2 years ago, when they first moved in. For emergencies, Mom, he'd said. Vanessa hadn't been happy about it, but David insisted. This qualifies as an emergency. I wait until I know Vanessa will be out. She posts everything on social media. Her life is a carefully curated performance. Today's post shows her at some boutique downtown, shopping bags artfully arranged. Posted 20 minutes ago. I drive to the high-rise condo. The doorman recognizes me, waves me through. I take the elevator to the 8th floor, heart hammering. The condo is exactly as I remember. Cold, white, expensive. Everything looks like a showroom. Nothing like a home. There are no photos of David. No warmth. Just designer furniture and empty elegance. I head to David's office, a small room Vanessa complained wasn't big enough, but he loved, because it had a view of the Space Needle. His desk is neat. Computer locked. Filing cabinet also locked. But I know my son. I know how he thinks. I check under the desk mat. Nothing. Behind the framed photo of us at his college graduation. Nothing. Then I see it. A small wooden box on the bookshelf, carved with mountains. I gave it to him for his 16th birthday. He kept special things in it. I open it. Inside, under some old concert tickets and a letter I wrote him for graduation, there's a key. It fits the filing cabinet. The drawer slides open, and my world tilts. Files. Organized, labeled, dated. David was documenting everything. Marital issues, financial disputes, Vanessa concerns and observations, legal consultation notes. But underneath those, there's something else. A folder labeled R. Pembroke Attorney Consultation. My hands shake as I open it. Documents, emails, notes in Vanessa's handwriting, dated to months before David's accident. Consultation notes about asset liquidation, strategies, questions about spousal rights during medical incapacity, printouts about guardianship laws in Washington State, a fee agreement with Pembroke's firm, signed by Vanessa, dated 8 weeks before the crash. She was planning this. Before the accident even happened, she was planning how to take his money if something happened to him. There's more. Brochures for Mediterranean cruises. Luxury car specs, a BMW M8, circled in red. Real estate listings for waterfront properties. And then, paper clipped to the back, a handwritten note in Vanessa's distinctive slanted script. Once this is handled, we'll be free. No more pretending. The Caribbean is waiting. Love you. The U isn't David. I photograph everything with trembling hands. Every page, every note, every damning piece of evidence. Then I see one more thing. A small business card, tucked into the folder. Richard Pembroke, attorney at law. On the back, in Vanessa's writing, Plan B if divorce too complicated. Plan B medical emergency. Guardianship. Control of assets. My son's accident wasn't her opportunity. It was her solution. I don't know if she caused it. I have no proof of that. And maybe I never will. But I know this. She was ready for it. Prepared for it. Maybe even hoping for it. I close the drawer. Lock it. Put the key back. Leave everything exactly as I found it. But the photographs on my phone are evidence that will destroy her. In the elevator down, I call Margaret. I have everything, I say, and it's worse than we thought. That night, I sit beside David's hospital bed, holding his hand. I've got you, baby, I whisper. I've always got you. His fingers are warm but still. The machines beep their steady rhythm. But I swear, just for a second, I feel the smallest pressure. His hand, squeezing back. The King County Courthouse is all marble and authority. The kind of building designed to make you feel small. High ceilings, stone columns, footsteps that echo like judgment. I'm wearing my best suit, the navy one I bought for David's college graduation, and have worn to every important moment since. It's been pressed and steamed, but I can still see where I've mended a small tear in the sleeve. Next to Margaret Chen's immaculate designer suit, I probably look exactly like what Vanessa thinks I am. Small, working class, easy to dismiss. Good. Let her underestimate me one last time. The guardianship hearing is in courtroom 7, 3rd floor. Margaret walks beside me, her leather briefcase in one hand, the other occasionally touching my elbow in reassurance. We've prepared for 3 days straight. Every document reviewed, every witness prepped, every possible argument anticipated. Remember, Margaret says quietly as we approach the courtroom doors, stay calm. No matter what she says, no matter how she performs, you stay calm. We have the facts. Facts win. I nod, but my heart is hammering so hard I can feel it in my throat. We push through the doors. Vanessa is already there, sitting at the petitioner's table with Richard Pembroke. She's wearing black, a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, with pearl earrings and her hair in a soft, grieving widow style. She's even added glasses, which I've never seen her wear. The performance has already begun. She doesn't look at me. Pembroke does, though. He's exactly what I expected from James's description. Slicked hair, expensive suit that shines a little too much, practiced smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He leans over to whisper something to Vanessa, and she nods, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Dry eyes, I notice. The tissue is for show. Margaret and I take our seats at the respondent's table. She arranges her documents with precise movements, projecting confidence. All rise. Judge Patricia Morrison enters. She's in her early 60s, with steel gray hair and an expression that suggests she's seen every trick in the book, and isn't impressed by any of them. I've looked her up. 30 years on the bench. Reputation for cutting through nonsense. Fair but firm. I'm grateful for firm. Be seated. We're here for the matter of Hayes' guardianship petition, case number 20-5 for 03847. Mr. Pembroke, you may present your case. Pembroke stands, buttoning his jacket. Thank you, Your Honor. My client, Mrs. Vanessa Hayes, comes before you in the most tragic of circumstances. Her beloved husband, David Hayes, age 28, has been in a coma for nearly a month following a devastating car accident. He gestures to Vanessa, who's staring down at her lap, tissue pressed to her nose. Mrs. Hayes has been by her husband's side throughout this ordeal, making difficult medical decisions, managing his affairs, all while coping with unimaginable grief. She now seeks formal guardianship to ensure that her husband's medical care continues uninterrupted, and that his financial interests are properly protected during his incapacity. Protected. That's a nice word for stolen. However, Pembroke continues, his voice taking on a darker tone. She has been blocked at every turn by the respondent David's mother, who has inserted herself into medical decisions and financial matters, where she has no legal authority. Mrs. Hayes, as the legal spouse, has every right to make these decisions. We asked the court to grant emergency guardianship so that David's wife, his chosen life partner, can properly care for him. He sits down, looking satisfied. Margaret rises. She doesn't button her jacket or make grand gestures. She simply stands, looks at the judge, and speaks clearly. Your Honor, this petition is not about medical care or proper management. It's about money. and the respondent has every legal right to oppose it, because she already has legal authority granted to her by David himself. She slides a document across to the court clerk, who passes it to the judge. 6 months ago, while of sound mind and body, David Hayes executed a comprehensive power of attorney naming his mother as his primary medical decision-maker. This document was notarized, witnessed, and filed according to Washington state law. It explicitly states his wishes that in the event of his incapacitation, his mother, not his spouse, would make medical decisions on his behalf. I watch Judge Morrison's eyebrows rise slightly as she reads. Pembroke jumps up. Your Honor, that document predates the marriage. The marriage was 2 years ago, Mr. Pembroke. This document is dated 6 months ago. Please don't interrupt. Judge Morrison's tone is ice. Pembroke sits back down, jaw tight. Margaret continues. Additionally, David established a trust protecting his business assets and personal savings, requiring dual authorization from himself and his mother for any major financial transactions. Mrs. Vanessa Hayes has no access to these funds, nor should she, and we have substantial evidence of why. What evidence? The judge asks. Evidence that Mrs. Hayes's concern is not for her husband's welfare, but for access to his financial assets. Evidence that she has been planning to obtain control of his money for months, even before his accident occurred. Vanessa's head snaps up. Her eyes meet mine for the first time, and there's pure hatred in them. Good. The mask is cracking. Margaret calls her first witness. The respondent calls Nurse Patricia Williams. Patricia walks to the stand, looking nervous but determined. She's sworn in, and Margaret begins. Nurse Williams, you've been David Hayes's primary ICU nurse since his admission, correct? Yes, Mum. Can you describe Mrs. Vanessa Hayes's behavior during her hospital visits? Patricia glances at Vanessa, then back to Margaret. She visits less and less. When she does come, she rarely stays more than an hour. She doesn't speak to David, doesn't touch him, except maybe to adjust his blanket once or twice. She spends most of the time on her phone in the hallway. And the respondent, David's mother? She's there every day, all day. She reads to him, talks to him, holds his hand. She learns his care routine, asks questions about his medications, notices small changes in his condition before the monitors do. Patricia's voice softens. She's what we hope every patient has. Someone who truly cares. Thank you, Nurse Williams. Pembroke stands for cross-examination, trying to suggest that Vanessa's limited visits are due to work obligations and emotional distress. Patricia doesn't budge. Sir, I've worked in ICU for 23 years. I know the difference between grief and indifference. I know what love looks like. What I've seen from Mrs. Hayes isn't grief. Next, Margaret calls James to the stand. He testifies about Vanessa's pressure to liquidate the business, about the cryptocurrency scheme, about the fights, about David planning to file for divorce. Pembroke objects repeatedly, calling it hearsay. Judge Morrison overrules. It's testimony about the witness's direct observations and conversations with the incapacitated party. I'll allow it. Then James drops the photograph. Vanessa with the unknown man at the restaurant, holding hands, intimate and smiling. When was this taken? Margaret asks. 1 week before David's accident. The courtroom is silent. Pembroke tries to recover. This proves nothing. Friends have dinner. It's circumstantial at best. Then let's move beyond circumstantial. Margaret interrupts. She approaches the bench with a folder. Your Honor, I'd like to submit exhibits gathered from the Hayes marital residence. Consultation notes with Mr. Pembroke's firm. dated to months before the accident. Documents discussing asset liquidation, guardianship procedures, and spousal rights during medical incapacity. All created while David Hayes was healthy and working. She spreads them out. The judge leans forward, reading. There's more. Brochures for luxury purchases, travel plans, and this a handwritten note from Mrs. Hayes stating, and I quote, "Once this is handled, we'll be free." The judge picks up the note, reads it, looks at Vanessa. "Mrs. Hayes, is this your handwriting?" Vanessa's lawyer jumps in. "Your Honor, we question the validity of these documents and how they were obtained. I'm not asking you, Mr. Pembroke. I'm asking your client, Mrs. Hayes. Is this your handwriting?" Vanessa's face has gone from pale to bright red. Those were taken out of context. Yes or no? Is this your handwriting? Yes. But, and these consultation notes with Mr. Pembroke's firm. You met with him 2 months before your husband's accident to discuss guardianship procedures? I was just being prepared in case. In case what, Mrs. Hayes? In case your healthy 28-year-old husband suddenly became incapacitated? The silence is deafening. Judge Morrison sits back, and I can see the disgust on her face. Your Honor, Pembroke tries desperately. My client has every right to plan for contingencies. Contingencies? Or opportunities. The judge's voice could cut steel. What I'm seeing here is a woman who began planning to access her husband's assets months before any accident occurred, who has shown minimal interest in his actual care, who was apparently involved with another man while her husband fought for his life. Vanessa stands up suddenly, and it all spills out. You want to know the truth? Her voice is shaking, loud, all the careful performance stripped away. Fine. Yes, I wanted access to the money. Do you know what it's like being married to someone who works 80 hours a week? Who talks about code and security systems and boring business plans instead of living? I wasted 2 years of my life with him. Vanessa, Pembroke grabs her arm, but she shakes him off. His mother is right. I don't love him. I never loved him. I loved what I thought he'd give me: a lifestyle, success, freedom. Instead, I got a workaholic who wanted to save every penny and live like he was still in college. I deserved better than that. I deserved compensation for the time I wasted. The courtroom is frozen. She realizes, too late, what she's done. Her hand flies to her mouth. She sits down heavily. Judge Morrison's expression is carved from stone. Mrs. Hayes, in 27 years on this bench, I have rarely heard such a reprehensible statement. You've just confessed, in open court, that you never loved your husband and that your interest in this guardianship is purely financial. She turns to Margaret. Does the respondent wish to add anything? Margaret shakes her head. I think Mrs. Hayes has made our case for us, Your Honor. Judge Morrison nods. Petition for guardianship is denied in its entirety. Existing power of attorney held by the respondent is affirmed and will remain in force. Furthermore, Mrs. Hayes, you are barred from making any medical or financial decisions regarding your husband. I'm also referring this matter to the prosecutor's office for review. Given the suspicious timing of your preparations prior to Mr. Hayes's accident, she bangs the gavel. We're adjourned. Vanessa is staring at the table, pale and shaking. Pembroke is gathering papers furiously, already distancing himself from the disaster. I sit very still, Margaret's hand on my shoulder. We won. I walk out of that courtroom with my head high, and I don't look back at the woman who tried to destroy my son. Outside, on the courthouse steps, I let myself breathe. Margaret smiles, a rare, genuine smile. You did it. We did it. I correct. But it's not over. Not until David wakes up. Not until I can tell him he's safe. The courthouse victory feels distant now, like something that happened to someone else. Because 2 weeks later, nothing has changed where it matters most. David is still in that hospital bed, still breathing with the help of machines, still somewhere I can't reach. Vanessa has been barred from the hospital by court order. I haven't seen her since that day she fell apart in the courtroom. I heard through James that she's moved out of the condo, gone to stay with her parents in California. The prosecutor reviewed the case but decided there wasn't sufficient evidence to prove she had anything to do with causing the accident. Suspicious timing isn't the same as proof. She'll get away with what she planned, but she won't get what she wanted. That has to be enough. I'm back in my vinyl chair, the one I've worn smooth over for weeks of vigil. It's early morning, that quiet hour when the hospital feels suspended between night and day. The sun is just starting to paint the sky outside David's window in shades of pink and gold. I'm reading to him The Hobbit, his favorite when he was 12. He used to beg me to read just one more chapter before bed, and I always gave in. Both of us curled up on his narrow twin bed, adventuring through Middle-earth when we couldn't afford to adventure anywhere else. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. His finger twitches. I stop mid-sentence. Wait. Watch. Nothing. I'm about to continue when it happens again. His right index finger, moving against the white blanket. Once. Twice. David? My voice is barely a whisper, afraid to hope. His eyelids flutter. I'm on my feet, pressing the call button, my other hand gripping his. David, baby, can you hear me? More movement. His eyes moving behind closed lids. His chest rising deeper, like he's fighting his way up from underwater. That's it. Come back. Come back to me. Nurse Patricia bursts through the door. What's happening? He's moving. His fingers. His eyes. She's checking monitors, calling for the doctor. But I can't look away from my son's face. His eyes open. Just a crack at first, confused and unfocused. Then more, blinking against the light. His lips move. No sound at first. Then the smallest whisper. Mom, I'm crying and I don't care. Yes, yes, baby, I'm here. I'm right here. Dr. Reeves comes in with 2 other specialists. They're checking responses, shining lights in his eyes, asking questions. David is groggy, confused, struggling to understand where he is and what happened. But he's awake. He's back. The next few days are a blur of tests and evaluations. David's neurologist, Dr. Reeves, explains that his recovery is remarkable but not instantaneous. There's memory fog, physical weakness, months of rehabilitation ahead. But his mind is intact, his personality unchanged. My son is still my son. On the 3rd day after he wakes, when he's strong enough to talk for more than a few minutes at a time, I know I have to tell him the truth. I sit beside his bed, holding his hand, and I start from the beginning. I tell him about Vanessa's decreasing visits, about the lawyer in the cafeteria, about the guardianship petition. His face goes through so many emotions: confusion, disbelief, hurt. I show him the power of attorney we'd signed together 6 months ago. His signature, his wishes, his protection. I don't remember signing this, he says softly. You joked that I was being paranoid. You said Vanessa would laugh if she knew. She would have. His voice is hollow. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. I should have listened to you from the beginning. You saw what she was. I didn't want to believe it. I squeeze his hand. Love makes us blind sometimes. That's not weakness. That's human. I tell him about the evidence I found. The consultation notes dated before his accident. The plans she'd been making. The man at the restaurant. He closes his eyes, and I see a tear slip down his cheek. She never loved me. No, baby, she didn't. But that's her failure, not yours. You are worthy of love. Real love. The kind that doesn't keep receipts or make contingency plans. How did you know? He asks. How did you see it when I couldn't? Because I'm your mother, and a mother always knows. He squeezes my hand back. You saved me. In every way a person can be saved. That night, after he falls asleep, I walk to the hospital chapel. It's small and quiet, with simple wooden pews and candles flickering in red glass. I sit down and let myself feel everything I've been holding back. The fear, the rage, the exhaustion, the relief, and finally, gratitude. Gratitude that I listened to my instincts. Gratitude that I fought for my son when he couldn't fight for himself. Gratitude that justice, imperfect as it was, still prevailed. I don't know if that's prayer or just acknowledgement, but it feels like releasing a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. 3 months later, David is in outpatient physical therapy. He walks with a cane now, but his therapist says he might not need it much longer. His strength is returning. His business partner James has been running the company, and they're slowly transitioning David back into decision-making. The divorce papers were filed 6 weeks ago. Vanessa didn't contest anything. She signed away her claims and disappeared. Last I heard, she was engaged to someone else. The man from the restaurant, maybe. I don't know and I don't care. David lives with me now, in my small house with the outdated kitchen and the second-hand couch. He says it's temporary, until he's fully recovered. But I notice he's in no hurry to leave. We have dinner together every night. We watch old movies. We tend the garden together, his hands in the soil beside mine, planting tomatoes and basil for the summer. Sometimes I catch him looking around my living room with new eyes, not seeing what's missing or outdated, seeing what's always been here. Home, safety, love that doesn't keep score. One evening, we're sitting on the back porch, watching the sun set over my small yard. He's quiet for a long time, then turns to me. I never thanked you properly. For everything. For protecting me when I was too stupid to protect myself. You weren't stupid. You were hopeful. That's different. Still, he takes my hand. Thank you for being suspicious. For being prepared, for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You saved my life twice. Once by giving it to me, once by protecting it when someone tried to take it away. I can't speak past the lump in my throat, so I just hold his hand tighter. I'm going to do better, Mom. I'm going to listen to my instincts like you taught me. I'm going to protect what matters, and I'm going to make you proud. Baby, I say softly, you already do. Every single day, we sit there as the sky turns from gold to purple to deep blue. And I think about everything that's happened. The betrayal, the fight, the victory. But mostly, I think about this. My son, alive and healing, sitting beside me in the peace of an ordinary evening. Sometimes justice is loud and dramatic, played out in courtrooms with gavels and testimony. But sometimes justice is quiet. It's a mother and son on a porch, safe and together, having survived something that was meant to destroy them. It's not a perfect ending. David's heart is still healing from the betrayal. My own trust in people has been shaken. There are scars that won't fade quickly. But we're here, we're together, and we're free. And that's enough. More than enough. That's everything. If this story moved you, click on the next video that's appearing on the screen now. I'm sure you'll be surprised by this new emotional and heartbreaking story. I have right here to tell you.